Welcome to the Rotojoes Fantasy Football Podcast, everybody. We have free agency. We have rookie quarterback talk. Maybe we talk about some chat GPT, which is all my thinking this past week. But we're for sure going to talk football. Caden,
Absolutely.
first off, do you think that Derrick Henry could have more running back 1 years from this point on than DeAndre Swift?
Oh, okay. I mean, in retrospect, I'm unreasonably low on Derrick Henry, but I'm even lower on DeAndre Swift. Um, do I think Derrick Henry is going to outperform DeAndre Swift for the next 3 years? Probably, because I just don't think DeAndre Swift's going to do anything. They go out, they get a David Montgomery, who I think is a little slept on from what he's going to do. Yeah, dude, I think that's the one of the two if you got to make a choice.
Yeah, I think that Derrick Henry is going to have 3 to 4 more RB1 years and then maybe a couple RB2 goal line back years at the tail end. Whereas
you said 3? So in retrospect, what did Adrian Peterson? He rushed for 1,000 yards. I don't think it was an RB1 season, but he was 34. So 3 years from now would put Derrick Henry 32, 33. Man, I just really don't see it. I think we're in a situation where their offensive line is absolutely depleted. They have no quarterback. Traylon Burks might be a decent weapon, but that's really all they got. His best case scenario is a trade. Somewhere. Anywhere.
But
where he's at.
Would you agree that Adrian Peterson would you agree that Derrick Henry is an Adrian Peterson level runner?
Yes. I think he's Adrian Peterson had a quickness that Derrick Henry doesn't have, but Derrick Henry has athletic ability that Adrian Peterson didn't have.
And size. There's few that make AP look small. Henry's one of them. So, Derrick Henry, his age 29 season. RB7, he tore his ACL that year. The next year, RB1, 21.6 points per game. The year after that, 31, 16.6 points per game, RB10. Then he started to fall off, had one more RB1 year, and then he fell off the face of the earth and was like RB3, 4 for the rest of his time. I think Henry could do something similar. He's of a build and body type that I think he holds up to the beating better than most of these other running backs do. So Henry's a huge dynasty buy for me because some people like you are going to be low because of age. If one running back is going to be an outlier, right? Like I like analytics. So when you look for outliers, it's like size, speed, whatever, athleticism, like whatever makes him the outlier. Well, Henry's outlier is size. And so I think he can take the beating better than some of these other guys can. He's a throwback style of back. Give me all the Derrick Henry.
Well, here's the situation right now is he's played on some bad teams, right? If they don't have a major draft, they could be the worst team in the league.
Are we sure about that?
I'm fucking positive.
I think you're not giving Vrabel and company as much credit as you should.
So here's the deal. Do they, knowing they're not going to compete in that division, because the Jaguars are going to run away with that division, and we all know that. They're not going to compete in that division. Ryan Tannehill has taken a couple of years of just steady decline. Do they pay him? Do they let him walk? Do they ride with Malik Willis, who very much struggled last year, but it kind of came home to me for all the scouts that were like, oh, he's a couple years away from NFL success. Do they roll with Malik Willis? I mean, I think he's talented, but he was clearly
Not a
very
starter.
raw last year.
Not a starter.
I don't think he's a starter either, but he's a guy that's
He might
inevitably going to
start.
get some kind of a chance, right?
Might start. You're right. He is not a starter, but he might start. Good clarification there, Cade. All right, let's get into news or noise. I think that was a fun starting topic. Okay, news or noise. DJ Chark will be a top 36 fantasy wide receiver in Carolina.
News. I'm in on it. DJ Chark, he's one of those guys that's just gone from one bad situation to another. He was productive on a bad Jaguars team. He was productive in a crowded Lions room, which is really weird. They have better receiving options than it looks like on paper. I'm a big DJ Chark fan, man. The Carolina Panthers, they went from trading DJ Moore, and then you look around that wide receiver room and you're like, dude, what are they going to do? They go out, they get a Hayden Hurst, they go out, they get an Adam Thielen, they go out, they get a DJ Chark. He's the number one on that team. I do expect them to add somebody, probably second round of the draft. They still have that second, so I think a guy like Josh Downs, Zay Flowers is kind of in play there, but ultimately I think he's going to be the wide receiver one, and he's criminally slept on in drafts right now. I mean, you could get him for nothing.
Yeah, Chark is 26, so he'll be 27 next year. He's on a 1 year.
Wild.
This is one of his best opportunities to get a long-term paycheck in the NFL that he's going to get. I mean, you assume Stroud's going to be the quarterback. This is a guy with 4.34 speed at 6'3". He'll get open down the field. He's good, not great in contested catch situations. You just hope he stays healthy, really. He's only had one season over 15 games. That year, he was wide receiver 19 with Gardner Minshew, though. So I also agree that Chark will be a top 36 fantasy wide receiver again, so long as he's healthy. All right.
He's a guy that I'm comfortable with absolutely not reaching for, but, if you're talking, I call it dumpster territory, but like 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round, I mean, gauge your league mates, but that's a guy I'm throwing a dart for late.
Yep, I agree. I agree. I like Chark a lot this year as a late round wide receiver. Here's a fun one. News or noise. Javonte Williams will not be fantasy relevant in 2023.
That's one. So I want to talk to Javonte's doctor is who I want to talk to, because I've seen reports. Hear me out here. I've seen reports that he'll be good to go week 1. I've seen reports that he might miss 4 to 6 weeks. I've seen reports that he's going to miss the whole season. At this point, for me, it's just a wait and see, because that's all you really can do. Everybody and their mother thinks they're Javonte's best friend, and they know how his knee's doing and this and that. Now, did he have a very gruesome injury? Absolutely. But I'm kind of on the train that I think he's probably going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. I think he's going to have a couple slow weeks after that. So for me, he's a second half of the year type of guy right now. That's the most realistic thing to me. And if he misses the whole season, it would kind of surprise me if he did. He's one of those guys that I'm not necessarily drafting in drafts, but I would love to go snag that late and stash it.
So I completely disagree, because while I've seen conflicting reports, what tells me how I think the reports are really going is how the Broncos are. If the Broncos only brought in like Samaje Perine, I would say sure, he's a backup running back.
Fucking Christ.
Well, they signed Tony Jones to a 1-year deal. They signed
Tony Jones? Oh, fuck, it's over for Javonte.
No, okay, so that's like a depth running back right now. If it ended there, I agree. The Denver Broncos athletic reporter stated that there's a good chance the Broncos are looking to add a running back in the draft. So now they're bringing in 4 running backs that I assume are going to make the roster. That does not bode well for Javonte's 2023 outlook. Nothing about his long term, but 2023 outlook. He tore a lot, and he didn't have a lot of athleticism to lose. So I do not, even if he comes back this year, he won't be relevant until next year. But I don't really think we see much of him.
Oh wow, that's a flaming hot take. So I guess the real story, like Tony Jones is fucking irrelevant. Samaje P. Ryan is not an every down back. I guess the real story would be told at the NFL draft. Do they take a guy in the second round or do they take a guy in the seventh round?
Agreed.
That would be for me the defining factor of how they really feel about it. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not his buddy. I can't just call him up and be like, "Hey, how's that knee doing?" But he's a guy that I like late. Realistically, until we hear other news, I think the overwhelming report is he is going to be ready, is what I'm reading. He's going to go way too high for me. I'm going to need, a guy that we're not even certain is going to play. I'm going to need, for me, it'd be 8th to 10th round, but I think he's going to go probably 3rd to 7th.
Yeah, I agree. Someone's probably going to reach on him, being optimistic. I probably won't have any Javonte again. I just don't. My cutoff is if they get a running back in the 4th round or higher, or lower, 4th or lower, I'm very concerned. 5th round, depends on the back. If it's like a Deuce Vaughn, whatever. If it's a Dwayne, I'm a little bit worried. After that, I don't care. It's depth. So I am in agreement. I mean, that's really, and we'll talk about it with prospects later. Like draft capital is. I saw draft capital and vibes are better on prospects. Like, and how I get the vibes is analytics. You can do it with film too, but I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm not going to act like it. I'll let the NFL figure it out, and I'll just figure out how they fit in the team.
Well, here's the thing: is opportunity is king in the running back world, and opportunity is directly related to draft capital, right? A guy who gets drafted 5th, 6th, 7th round may never even get the opportunity to carry the ball. A guy, so with running backs, 2nd and 3rd round is the new 1st round. That's high draft capital, 2nd, 3rd round for a running back. 4th, 5th, and 6th and 7th, I'm not even concerned. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Javonte. There's a long off season ahead of us. I'm comfortable buying at the right price.
Agreed.
He was a guy that was very exciting. Rookie season, few games he played last year. If he is healthy, he'll get a role. I'm good buying at the right price, and the right price can't be super high, but that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't want to buy Javonte. I don't want to draft him in a redraft this year. However, I'm not necessarily. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I don't think he's relevant this year. Is what I'm getting at. I'll trade for him in Dynasty all day long. All right, we just talked about opportunity mattering for running backs. Let's talk about Damian Harris. I'll start here. Is Damian Harris a top 24 fantasy running back if he stays healthy in Buffalo? Ready? That is news. Damian Harris saw 15 touchdowns in New England. I'm a New England fan. I watch a lot of the games. I watch them fucking pissed off, but I watch them. Damian great. You don't want to catch him the ball. He's like great value Nick Chubb. I mean, that's the best way to describe Damian Harris, really. He does a lot of the same things and brings a lot of the same things to the table, but just not even close to as talented as Chubb is. Buffalo they've talked about it for 2 years. They want to get pressure off Allen's legs. They don't want him taking the hits, especially like around the goal line where he takes a lot of Damian Harris, if he commands 75 to 80% of the goal line runs on this team, he'll be a top 24 back. I mean, it's easy. I think that James Cook is going to be like a high-end RB3, and Damian Harris is a mid RB2. So I have this as news. I really like this landing spot for Damian Harris. I've been a Damian Harris truther. I remember I told you he'd be good like his rookie year when he was hurt, and you're like, "Oh, who the fuck is that?" Oh. Look who we're talking about. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember.
Yeah, I think he has definite potential. He's kind of smelling like, there was 2021 James Conner, there was 2022 Jamal Williams. He's kind of smelling like 2023 Damian Harris. He's a guy that's going to have majorly inflated numbers because the Bills are that good at getting to the goal line. His only question to me is health. I think in drafts you're going to get him at a good value because a lot of people aren't gonna think like that, right? Like a guy who runs for 700 yards, but he might get 16 touchdowns. That's immediately RB low end RB1, right? And you got to realize the value shift is if that happens, you sell because it won't fucking happen again, right? Jamal Williams, you should have sold all the Jamal Williams you have.
When he signed 3 years, $12 million to New Orleans, and people acted like that was a signal he'd be good.
Good for him, dude. He's staying getting paid. A guy that was a 4th, 5th round guy, I think. I mean, don't
get the fact that I just said that conflated with I want all these dudes to get paid. Good for them. Great for them. By all means, keep getting paid. I just don't think they're like a fantasy relevant football player for very long.
Yeah, no, like Jamal Williams, a person, I love to watch that guy's interviews. He's hilarious. He's he's a very likable guy. I think he has a hell of a first 4 to 6 weeks when Kamara gets suspended.
Yeah, he'll get suspended too. The video came out, so he's done for.
Oh, I didn't see it yet. Is it brutal?
It's not like brutal, but it's enough that he'll get at least 4 games. The video matters. Like if it's on video, you're getting hit. If it's not on video,
Kareem Hunt would still be a Chief if it wasn't on video.
Yeah.
Book it.
News. I'll start with this one too. Jackson Smith and Jigba is landing spot proof and will be a top 36 fantasy wide receiver in 2022. This is also news. I'm willing to say he's a top 24 wide receiver on like 28 of 32 teams. But this guy ran the reported number was 4.48. It was for sure under 4.4 or 4.55. It was probably between 4.52 and 4.58. So somewhere in there. So he ran the 40 in the analytical number you want it to be under, which is 4.55. He's 6 foot 196, put up 1,600 yards, sharing a wide receiver room with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. And this guy was the sophomore. Marvin Harrison Jr., if I'm not mistaken, also on that roster as a freshman. So, I mean, we're talking about a guy that dominated a couple of elite top-level wide receivers. I told you that he's a generational wide receiver talent. If he had a 16 to 18-year career where 15 of those he had 100 catches and 1,000 yards, it wouldn't surprise me. He is that good, and he'll age gracefully. I'm all in on JSN. I'm really trying hard to trade up to get some JSN this year. He's just, he has all the skills you want. Only knock is not a 4.3 guy. So what?
So guess who you have to trade with to get a piece of that?
I know, and it sucks because we are getting to the point in viewership. I can't not give good advice, but that means you know what I think, and this is what I think. You have access to the same data sheet I make, so you see all the green.
I'm aware. So here's my take on JSN. I do like the player. I do. And this whole conversation we're having right now is just because I texted you earlier and said, hey, what if, I think he's the wide receiver one in the class as well. But what if he goes to a team that's loaded in the wide receiver room? And the examples I gave are the Eagles, the Bengals, and the Chargers. I'm like, does he have fantasy relevance year one at that point? Now, those particular teams, especially like the Bengals, who are going to inevitably prepare for T. Higgins to depart, the Chargers, who, if Keenan makes it through the year, it'll be his last year. Those are the teams that I could see doing it because they're preparing for the loss of another receiver. And that's what smart teams do. And that was just my point. I'm like, does he have the same? Now, here's the thing. He goes to the Chiefs, who
if he goes to New England, that's how good this guy is. He is Belichick proof.
Is he?
He is. Him and Mac Jones would be ridiculous, and it wouldn't be Mac. It would be like Calvin Ridley and Matt Ryan late in Matt Ryan's career.
Yeah. JSN might save Mac Jones's job. I agree with that.
I'll be there. If we don't take him, I'm gonna get on FaceTime with Bill. I don't know how I'm gonna figure that out, but I'm gonna figure that out.
Well, he's so fucking old. His phone number should be like 1, right?
Landline.
Yeah, landline. So yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think he has his best case scenario year one is probably wide receiver 2 range. I think landing spot's going to have a lot to do with that. There's a lot of teams he could go to where he could be in the low end wide receiver 1 conversation. It just depends.
He could do what Ave did last year, but better.
I mean, the real deal is getting Marvin Harrison Jr. next year.
Sheesh.
He should be 101 next year, and
no, because that's Caleb. He's like 103.
So, no, here was my quote, and I'll say it on the podcast so everybody could flame me later, but if Caleb Williams does not declare next year, Marvin Harrison Jr. 101.
Do you know who Drake May is, or are we just forgetting that guy's alive?
Don't give a shit.
Okay, one quarterback, I wholeheartedly agree, actually. So I'm not disagreeing at a level of talent perspective. He should be, right? But in a super flex league, to not take Drake May is just if you have 3.
So here's the thing. You remember 1 year ago, or maybe 1 year ago, before the college football season was, do you know who we all thought was going to be the 101 in this year's draft? Spencer Rattler, and he could fucking be undrafted. So
he's not even in the draft. He went back to school.
And that was the right move for him, because if he was in this draft, he would be undrafted.
Oh, yeah. Man, what happened to that guy? God damn.
He was a guy that was held up by Lincoln Riley and not well.
I remember watching the Texas OU game when Caleb Williams came in for him. And I remember Texas was up 40. That was when we first started podcasting. So I wasn't into college football like I am now. Now, all day long I'm watching. But then, not at all.
Yeah.
I remember watching that and texting, I was like, oh, yeah, this game's fucking over.
Yeah.
It was not over. It was
not, no.
Okay. Trey Hopkins could see a Larry Fitzgerald-esque late career resurgence playing out of the slot. Truth, news or noise?
That's absolutely news. And truthfully, his situation, I mean, you got to realize they're going to go into the year. They might miss a half a year of Kyler Murray. It might be Colt McCoy for half a year, or I don't know if he.
Probably all year, I bet.
It might be the whole year, yeah. So his best case scenario is to get traded. They're already in, that mode. They're going to trade him. Question is where to? I've heard the Chiefs. I've heard the Patriots. The Cowboys were a conversation before Brandon Cooks. I think that kind of puts them out of contention there. There's not a team in this league that DeAndre Hopkins couldn't go to and be productive. If there's a couple players that I've watched a fucking lot of, it's DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm about as big of a fan as you can get. The dude he's not the fastest guy on the field. He never was. Very good route runner and has unbelievable hands, and he would flourish unbelievably in. He's going to be one of my buys later in the podcast, but he would flourish in a Kansas City type of environment. He would flourish in a New England type of environment, and I'm smelling New England. That's what I'm smelling.
Fuck, I hope so. I hope so. We need that. Okay, I am all in on this take too. And I really need to start crediting people on Twitter as I interact with more people and more people watch us. It's been awesome. In fact, it's been quite crazy to keep up with at points on YouTube. As we interact more with people, I need to start crediting them. I saw someone tweet this. They said DeAndre Hopkins could very easily see a Larry Fitzgerald-esque resurgence in the slot. And that's all they tweeted. And I saw it, and I was like, yeah, maybe. And I was outlining for this, and I needed a last topic, and I put it on. Well, then I went and looked on Player Profiler. These guys have, essentially the same athletic profile. Fitz was an inch taller. They're about the same weight. So they're like the same-ish guy. And then we go deeper. Both excellent route runners with they're just flagrant hands. I mean, Hopkins never dropped anything, neither did Fitzgerald. Neither of them ever have really relied on athleticism. Fitzgerald was a great jump ball receiver. I remember in 2008 telling you to throw me jump balls like I was Larry Fitz in the backyard of my mom's house. So Fitzgerald used to be like Hopkins could be. And then he wasn't as he got older, just like Hopkins could be. So Hopkins entering year 10 has had 6 wide receiver 1 years, 2 wide receiver 2 years, and then 1 wide receiver 3 year. Larry Fitzgerald, after that 10th year, who had, I think it was pretty much all wide receiver 1 years, but 3 as well. He had 3 more wide receiver 1 years, a wide receiver 3 year, and a wide receiver 4 year in PPR. That's super valuable. So,
yes,
for sure could have 4 or 5 more years of value. He's a dynasty buy for me. I've been trying to move Keenan Allen for him for a minute, and I think I might have a biter on it because it's fair. And I think Keenan Allen has some years too. But Hopkins is going to have more wide receiver 1 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Larry Fitzgerald, he did it so gracefully.
Yep.
Right? Like, he was that guy, that stud on the outside, and then 1 year, all of a sudden, he starts lining up in the middle, and the production didn't dip. We didn't even know, right? Because most of us don't watch Cardinal games. We just see the stat line and the highlights, and then we start realizing we're like, hey, that motherfucker ain't outside no more.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wow, he had a shitload of catches and barely any yards. What happened to Fitz?
Yeah, and he's still producing the same amount of fantasy points, but he's just lining up in different slots. So, yeah, it doesn't get more graceful than that. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer yet, but he will be. I don't know if he's eligible yet, but the same could be said about DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, he's that dude, and he is quarterback proof. He showed that all his years in Houston. So in my opinion, it truly doesn't matter. As long as someone can throw the ball in his general direction, he's going to go get it. So, he's a big buy for me.
Yeah. I agree. All right, let's go over quickly free agency. Let's go as quick as we can over these. Give me in 3 words or less your reaction to each of these moves, and I'll do the same. Marquez Callaway to the Broncos.
Okay.
Jag, just the guy. Nelson Aguilar to Baltimore.
Best receiver they got.
Land of misfits. Jamison Crowder to New York on a 1-year deal.
Roster clogger.
Slot mania. Elijah Moore and a 23 third-round pick to Cleveland in a 23 second. Elijah Moore in a 23 third to Cleveland for a 23 second.
Aaron Rodgers trade ammo.
Agreed. McCall Hardman 1 year, $6.5 million to the Jets.
Downfield stretcher.
Marquez Valdez Scantling.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying now.
Rojo to Dallas.
Goal line work.
DNP. Did not play.
Okay.
Brandon
Coach's decision. Yeah.
Brandon Cooks to Dallas.
Target machine.
CD Freer.
Freer. They're going to be in trouble, though, because they don't have a tight end anymore to take some heat off.
Let's talk about – I don't really give a fuck about a lot of these, right? Like Marquez Callaway, Jamison Crowder. I like Jamison Crowder last year, but let's talk about Elijah Moore. I think that's one we'll talk about Cooks and Elijah Moore, and then we'll jump on quarterbacks, and we'll get out of here. Elijah Moore is actually really interesting. I think Watson's going to be a lot better this year. I mean, I don't think he forgot how to play quarterback in a year.
No.
I mean,
I think he is a bad fit in a Stefanski scheme.
I would agree.
I think he's a bad fit in a Stefanski scheme, and if they have another bad year, it's not going to matter.
Only one of those two guys can't get fired for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Deshaun Watson actually owns the Cleveland Browns. I don't know if you know that, but he does. But Elijah Moore, I think he's a good piece, but he is no better than the third wide receiver on that team. Because I am a Donovan Peoples-Jones truther. He fits so well in what they do there. He's not going to – actually, he's probably the fourth pass catcher on the roster because you got Njoku, you got Cooper, you got Peoples-Jones, and I think all those guys are going to get targets before Elijah Moore. But he could have, like, deep sleeper value. We talk a lot about those guys like – we talked about Jameson Williams last week, how he smells a little bit like Mike Williams. That's kind of how I feel about Elijah Moore, but he's just not fast enough to do that. So I'm at a weird place with Elijah Moore. If you got a Browns fan in your league and you can pass him off at a high value, I'd probably be more comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I agree. Here's the deal. I don't know how much longer we have of Amari Cooper. So that would be my only caveat. He's a very, very, very fucking old 28. He's played
Fuck off, dude. I turned 31 on Tuesday. Kiss my ass.
Oh no, I don't mean it's old. I mean that he's played 9 years, dude. He's 29. He's been in the NFL since he was fucking 20. That's a long time in this league.
Yeah, so he played for the Raiders when they were in Oakland, and that's something you can say, right?
Yeah, that guy is very old, and that doesn't mean he's not still good. But maybe here's the move on Elijah Moore. Maybe you sell him now in the hopes to buy him in a year, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what it is. Because I don't think Cooper's gonna be. Cooper's a guy that ran 4.42. How long do guys that run 4.42 stay running 4.42? Not that long. I mean, after 10 years, not that much longer. All right. Yeah. Brandon Cooks to Dallas. What's his outlook? I think he's going to be undervalued this year. I think that. But
so let me tell you the history of Brandon Cooks, right? He spent a whole lot of years being undervalued. And then everybody realized that, right? Everybody realized he was undervalued, and then last year he skyrocketed real quick into overvalued. So here's what's going to happen in drafts this year: is there's going to be a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth from last year. He's going to be undervalued this year, and he's a guy that he's going to be everything we thought Michael Gallup was going to be, because here's what you got to realize about the Cowboys offense. They're going to have a shitload of vacated targets from Dalton Schultz.
Yep.
Right? There's going to be a lot of work to go around. Everybody loves to hate Dak, but Dak, in my opinion, is a low-end top 10 guy. I would rather have a Dak than Derek Carr, than Kirk Cousins, all them other guys. He's a low-end top 10 guy. If you put him at 7, 8, and 9, I don't hate it, right?
Yep.
That offense is going to continue to sling the ball because that's just what they do. And they're going to have to do a whole lot more of it because I don't think Tony Pollard is a 3-down back.
Nope.
So a situation I feel like for Brandon Cooks where he might have his best year as the second guy in the offense. And that's where he belongs, in my opinion. He was never an alpha. He was never going to command a target share. He's always had other guys, except for a couple years at Houston where he didn't have other guys to take the heat off of him. This is the best thing for him, and I love Brandon Cooks late. Once you start getting into picking second wide receivers, we talked a lot about 1.2 receivers on teams, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. That's kind of tier 1. I'm going to put Brandon Cooks in that tier 2 of second wide receivers, and I feel comfortable with that.
Agreed. He'd be a wide receiver 1 on like a third of NFL teams. All right.
Yeah, probably. Mm-hmm.
Caden, let's break down these quarterbacks. We have our top 6. We'll talk about one ideal landing spot for them, talk about them a little bit. We have a lot of agreements, but there is difference. So we'll start with your quarterback 6 in the 2023 draft, Tanner McKee from Stanford.
So Tanner McKee, he's a guy, good physical profile, plays good football, but he's just not dynamic enough, in my opinion, to crack into that top 5. But I think he inevitably is quarterback 6 in this draft. My thing about it is I think the grand scheme of things, I think 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10. And then we kind of sit and wait, right? And then it's really open season from there. I think all of these guys past the top 4 guys could go second round, they could go third round, they could go 7th. I don't really fucking know because it all depends on value. Now, Hendon Hooker, which is a guy we'll talk about, I think he's a second, third round guy. I think Tanner McKee's probably third, fourth round guy. Just depends on how the dominoes fall. But my ideal landing spot for Tanner McKee is a little bit of Lamar insurance, right? Like, we don't know if the Lamar situation is going to be handled by the draft, by the start of the season. I think the Baltimore Ravens go out and get a guy just in case, because isn't Tyler Huntley also a restricted free agent?
They tendered him, but he is a free agent.
Yeah, so there is a reality where they don't have either. I don't think they spend a high pick on it, but I think they address the situation in the draft later on. So that's why that's the ideal landing spot for me. I don't hate it, but I don't think he fits what they've been doing. But they also got a new offensive coordinator, and they're very adaptable to whatever they've got to deal with. So Tanner McKee of the Ravens.
All right, I like that. Tanner McKee's my quarterback 7, just outside. My quarterback 6 is Stetson Bennett, who I actually also have preferred landing spot as the Ravens, following his offensive coordinator from college, Todd Monken. And I honestly think as a spot starter in Baltimore, Bennett, assuming that you could run similar plays outside of the quarterback runs, Stetson Bennett actually might be a fine spot starter for Lamar. He'll be really good in the offense. He knows what they're doing already. So I like Bennett. He's only 5'11". That's a knock. He came out as a senior. That's a knock. 4'6", 740. he has a really clean career passing profile in terms of analytics, outside of the fact that he didn't have a 35 touchdown year. But he's projected as a backup. He doesn't need to be all green on the analytics. I really like Bennett. I think he'd be a good fit as a backup quarterback in Baltimore under Monken as college coordinator. However, this late, you really don't know, and all these guys are backups.
Yeah, I agree. I think the offensive coordinator hiring says a lot about how they feel about Lamar, because that guy has not had a guy like Lamar. So to say he could coach Lamar to a successful situation is kind of a reach in itself. Yeah, I like Baltimore to address the quarterback situation at least slightly. I mean, if they get 2 firsts out of Lamar after the draft, so it's a 24-25, they take a guy to get him through a year. I don't hate it.
No, I don't either. All right, Caden, your quarterback 5, Hendon Hooker.
Hendon Hooker. He's a guy that is impressing very much in interviews from what I've read. He's got definite value. I see him as a round 2 type of guy going to Tennessee. And the reason that I feel like that's going to be a thing is Tennessee has bigger issues at this moment than quarterback. Their offensive line is garbage, and that's part 1.2 of their whole fucking game, right? They're a run first team. Derrick Henry, they cut Taylor Lewan and Ben Jones, both key contributors. Taylor Lewan got a little bit hurt last few years. But those are all critical pieces to the Derrick Henry run it down your throat game. So I think they've got to go offensive tackle round 1, but he's a guy I'd like to see them end up with in round 2. We talked about it, Malik Willis. I remember hearing a scout say he's a couple years away prior to the draft, which, he snowballed down to the 3rd round, which at one point we thought he was going to be a first-round guy. So he's probably not the answer. And then we also had the conversation about, do they eat Ryan Tannehill's contract this year?
Yep.
I don't know. I don't think it's worth it, probably, because he hasn't been good the last 2 years. He had good years in Tennessee. Absolutely. He kind of surprised us a year or two when he first got there, but he's not that guy anymore. And they've got to make that realization and make that move. And I think Hendon Hooker is the perfect person to do that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Hooker later. I am very high on Hooker, but let's have a think about Anthony Richardson. So 6'4", 245, 4'4", 340. And he's a junior declare. That's where the green stops, right? He had under 500 career pass attempts, meaning he couldn't beat out other guys on the same roster. Sure, the quarterback before the current quarterback or the current coach at Florida wasn't the greatest coach, but he still wasn't on the field. So he's not on the field. He had a quarterback rating under 75. He didn't throw for 3,300 yards or more in his best season. Didn't have a 35 touchdown year. Under 8 career yards per attempt. 3.8% interception rate. And 59.4% best year completion percentage. The guy can play football.
You're saying this is your number 5, right?
Yeah. Just because he's fast. Literally.
So here's my question for you then. Is his ceiling Justin Fields today, or is his ceiling less than that?
We kind of have to think about it. Imagine if Lamar Jackson and who did I comp it to? Imagine if Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen had a child, but it had the arm and decision making of Colin Kaepernick. So, like,
Oh.
quarterback 7.
Oh.
But not for long. Not for long. That's the thing. This is a 2 to 4 year span where he's a productive quarterback.
So where do you see him going in the draft?
Okay, where do I see him going, or where do I think would be best for him to go?
I want to hear both.
Where I think he's going, God, I still couldn't come up with a good spot. Dude, if I'm being honest with you, I think he falls out of the top 5. I think Indianapolis goes Levis if they go one of the two. So I think he falls out of the top 5. Maybe Seattle. Maybe Seattle is the realistic spot for him. Now, where do I want him to go is Philadelphia at 10. They trade Jalen Hurts after this year. Don't have to pay him. Get 4 more years at quarterback at cheap with Richardson and a similar skill set. And then do the same thing in 3 to 4 years.
So you're saying Philadelphia is just going to be a quarterback recycler?
Get the most athletic, strong-arm quarterback each year, give him a year to sit and develop, and then make a decision.
You know, it's not the craziest thing I've heard. But, I mean, we all know, so fast forward a year, and they might have a Lamar situation on their hands.
Yeah.
Lamar's contract is going to define the rest of the NFL for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yep.
Because he either goes and gets that fully guaranteed contract, and then that's going to be the norm, right? Because every quarterback's going to be like, well, Deshaun got it, Lamar got it, I want it. And you can't say no to a Joe Burrow. You can't say no to a Justin Herbert. You can't say no to a Lamar, a Jalen Hurts. Or he doesn't get it, and then it kind of sets Deshaun Watson shit as an outlier.
Yep. I know it'll be interesting. I think that's the big brain move, though, that no one's thought about is that. And I understand, but I'm not that high on Hurts. So, all right, your quarterback 4 is also Anthony Richardson, or it is Anthony Richardson because he's my 5. Why do you think he has a higher ceiling than Hendon Hooker?
Draft capital, and that's really it.
Does it really matter at this position?
Yes.
Does
for
it
at least a few years?
If you're in the top 50 pick.
Yeah, because I think he's going to be a top 5 pick. Do I think he should be? Probably not. But I've been a well-documented Jim Irsay hater. He is, like I told you the other day, he is new age Jerry Jones, and he is going to cripple that franchise forever. I think he just kind of got lucky on the Andrew Luck thing. But his decisions past that have just been terrible. They get good players, but I kind of feel like by no fault of his own. He smells like the type of guy that will go out and get Anthony Richardson. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is another trade in this first round. It's Indy paying to go up where Arizona is and get Anthony Richardson.
You could also see that happening.
And in my opinion, I see Anthony Richardson as a guy who should probably go end of the first round. He's got a Lamar Jackson skill set. He's got a lot of development that it's going to take to be an NFL starter if he's even able to achieve that. Loaded with question marks right now. Is the athletic profile there? Yeah, it is. But there's a lot of shit that could happen to where he doesn't end up being Lamar Jackson.
Lamar was so much better as a passer than Richardson in college. I can't even put it into words. I mean, it's like the difference between Tom Brady and Brock Osweiler in the NFL.
Hold on.
Yes. Oh no. Yes.
We
Oh,
don't speak that name around my house.
oh yes. Oh yes. Okay. So my quarterback 4 is Hendon Hooker, and here's why. Had he played a full year, not torn his ACL, he would have green passing metrics. His issue, he came out as a senior, a little bit of a fluky start at Virginia Tech. He played well, but not exceptionally, but with little talent around him. Goes to Tennessee. Hupel runs a super simple offense to play in. It's not uber complicated, but you do have to make throws in it. Hendon Hooker did that. So, obviously, like we said earlier, landing spots are what make or break these players. I don't claim to know more than the NFL. So, this is super subject to change based on landing spot.
Mm-hmm.
But say Hooker goes to a team like Minnesota. He gets to sit for a year. He gets to learn the offense. It's a complicated offense, but the quarterback's reads aren't all that difficult. It's very much based on a couple of different guys, and there's a lot of play action and runs, and it's helpful for quarterbacks in that offense. If he goes somewhere like Minnesota, that might be light-skinned Kirk Cousins. I mean,
I like that landing spot. I mean, I really do.
Realistic. Late first, early second.
You look at Hendon Hooker and you're like, there's a 50% chance he goes to a good landing spot where he develops and he can take over as an average starter. And this could be said about all these guys, but there's a 50% chance he goes to a team that he's just not going to do well with. And I like Minnesota as a landing spot. They cannot keep. Here's the thing. That is a decent team that should be better than they are. And it's not necessarily O'Connell's fault. It's not necessarily anybody's fault. I just don't think Kirk Cousins is a Super Bowl level quarterback. Now, is he a serviceable starter? Sure, but he's getting fully guaranteed money every fucking year for the last. He was the first guy to get it. Because he got a 3-year deal and then a 1-year deal and then another 1-year deal. So, yeah, I just don't think he's the guy to get him to the promised land. So maybe Hooker is it.
Yeah. All right, these next 3 we are in agreement on. So let's jump through them quick. We're running short on time. All right, both of our quarterback 3s are Will Levis. Who's your ideal landing spot?
Raiders.
I like that. Go ahead.
I kind of see them as, Jimmy Garoppolo is clearly a gap fill type of guy. A really good gap fill, but he is not the long-term answer. And I think Will Levis is going to take some development at the next level. I kind of smell him as like a Josh Allen. And if Josh Allen had a couple years to sit, he would have had a lot better welcome to the league.
Yes. Josh Allen had rough years. My ideal landing spot, and it's not going to happen probably, is Green Bay because he ran that LaFleur McVay offense in college. They have some guys there. He could sit behind Jordan Love. I don't think we don't know. From what it sounds like, Jordan Love probably isn't the long-term guy. So get Will Levis in there and let Jordan Love play this year, next year, and then evaluate where you're at.
Well, the last time a Packers quarterback was traded to the Jets, the guy that started after him had a Hall of Fame career. So,
I am aware. All right.
What's that?
Quarterback 2, CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud. So I think CJ Stroud's going to go 1.
Yep.
I think I've seen a lot of things, read a lot of articles. I think they're honing in on CJ Stroud. Now, truthfully, I'll go out and say it. He might be the better passer. But he also played with a loaded offense his entire career. So I wonder how his transition to the NFL is actually going to go. He's not going to have an elite offensive line. He's not going to have elite receiving cores around him. And this has been my long-standing thing. I think Bryce Young is the better or the more prepared to start day one. But I think CJ Stroud is the better passer. But he's going to take some development, right? So I think him to Carolina at 101 is going to be the thing. I just think it takes a little bit longer to get the wheels off the ground.
Agreed. I really like Stroud, and you can tell Carolina's something for a rookie. Can't tell yet exactly what. I mean, we can, but for a while there, you weren't sure how it was all going to piece together. But now that they have Chark, it looks really good, and it wasn't super expensive. All right. I also have Carolina. I think that's obvious. I just said that. I think that's pretty clear. Quarterback one, both of us. Bryce Young, both of us have him likely going to Houston. I will go here with, I think his ideal landing spot is Indianapolis with Shane Steichen, though. I think he would be a beauty in that offense. I don't think Richardson's a good football player. He might put up good fantasy numbers for a few years, but he won't make it to his fifth-year option. And if he does, he won't make it to a second contract there as a starter. Bryce Young.
Right. Bryce Young to me, so he's small, right? Like we're having this conversation over and over and over again. A lot of Kyler Murray comparisons, but I think what separates him from Kyler Murray is just maturity, football IQ. He's got what you can't teach, and I think that's what makes him the best quarterback in the draft. I really, really, really hope that Carolina goes Stroud at one, because Bryce Young, he can get out of the pocket, he can do things, but he's also he's the dude. He's the dude that I hope ends up in Houston.
Are you ready? How mad would you be if you guys drafted Will Anderson?
Not terribly, because in my mind, then here's the thing: is every fucking year, right? There's a generational defensive talent. The thought in my mind, and I know how Nick Caserio is on a fine line, right? You don't want to be picking high enough next year to have a chance at a Bryce Young. That's got to be the mindset for that guy, because he should have got fired last year, but he didn't. You don't want to be in the conversation for a franchise quarterback for a fourth year in a row. You know what I mean? That doesn't bode well for your employment status. So I think they go quarterback at 2, whether it be Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. I think it's going to happen either
way. Yep. Agreed. All right. Anything else we want to touch on?
Good luck. I'm in my week and a half underdog draft. I think we're only in the 10th round.
Nice. Yeah, I knew when you did that it was going to be long. I do the long drafts on it.
It's fucking so long, dude.
Something people would really not give a single fuck about. A long draft on underdog for $5 would be one.
10.
Yeah.
That's the big money.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We will be back next week talking about running backs.